We all know that real estate has created more millionaires than any other industry on the planet. We also know that it has created a lot of heartache due to mismanagement, overborrowing, and just simple life events that happen to all of us. Welcome to the Cash Flow Pro podcast. My name is Casey Brown, and I am your fearless leader. And although we might be bourbon sipping and at times foul-mouthed Southerners, we will always do our best to be honest, straightforward, and due diligent with all of the information we pass along to you. Welcome to the show. Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of Cash Flow Pro, your daily real estate investing podcast and YouTube channel. I am here with Rocky Lalvani of Profit Comes First. Rocky, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Casey. Thank you so much for having me on your
Absolutely.
show.
We're glad you're here, and we hope to hear more about Profit Comes First. But first, let's hear about you and where you come from and what brings you to the real estate or syndication or capital raising business.
So I'm out in central Pennsylvania. I think back in 2011, I realized I lost enough money in the stock market, so I thought I would try and lose some in real estate. I figured I might be able to do a little bit better. And that was an opportune time to pick up properties. And so we picked up rental properties, and we were flipping homes through much of the downturn, and that went on for quite a few years. And then it's harder to do now in that it's harder to source a deal. Um, and things changed between my business partner and I, and so I've kind of taken a step back. I still have rentals, but honestly, in my marketplace, because of capital appreciation and the rents not keeping up, as our renters move out, we are just liquidating properties. I can see other opportunities in other markets or other ways of investing that just make more sense. And I think it's all market by market. You have to look at your specific market, your particular goals, and what you want to do. And so that part of what brings me here. And the other side is I work with a lot of real estate investors on the profit first side. So we help them to understand their financials, make sure their deals are actually profitable, and hold on to the cash when they're done.
Sure. Now, so from the real estate investor side, and you and I were talking a little bit about capital gains and other tax, potential strategies or so on and so forth, there before the show. And when we're starting to look at the profit comes first, and you said that, I guess what I'm trying to get at here is you're taking your profit from the houses that you, or are you talking about single family residences? Let me back up here. Are you talking about single family residences to start with? Or are you talking about multifamily deals, or what are we talking about?
I do single family, but the principles apply everywhere, right? Even if you're doing multifamily. I can't tell you how many real estate guys will say, "Oh yeah, I got 100 doors." Well, what's your profit? I have no idea. Like, how much money is left over? I don't know. Or they pencil them out to start, and you say, "Okay, well, we need so much for vacancy. We need so much for long-term capital renovations. We need so much for reserves." Now, if you're a syndicator, all that money gets put aside because no syndicator wants to call his people and say, "Capital call," right?
Capital call because I was dumb.
But the average real estate investor doesn't put his reserves aside. So the biggest thing we talk about is behave like a big boy or a big girl. Put your money aside, set your reserves, because we are going to go through storms. I mean, we went through COVID. COVID turned out fine. Right? But because of what happened during COVID, I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring.
And I think that's the same sentiment across everywhere. I mean, I think everybody has this, I don't know, COVID could have done one of two things. It could have made it seem like, hey, there really is never going to be another bad day, or it could have gave people the exact idea that you just said, hey, maybe I should be prepared because really we don't know what tomorrow holds, which is that's the truth. That's the correct way, but the other way could give us a false sense of security.
Well, it is. Let's face it. If you look at, I would probably say, well, hell, my whole life. If you go back and you look at real estate interest rates and where they have gone over the last 30 years, no,
Yep.
40 years, they are declining, right? So if you're buying real estate and your money keeps getting cheaper and you can keep refining down, it's a
Yep.
winner's game. Like you can be dumb and win. But if it goes the opposite direction, which the conversations are just starting to happen now in the syndication business because they're writing the deal today. I got money, I got to deploy it. And their refinance is 3 years from now. You know, if interest rates stay where they thought they were going to be, great. But if interest rates go from 4 to 7, do you cash flow? Does
Yep.
it work? And so that's one. And the other thing is, I don't think people realize in going through 2008, we saw this. When you hit a bad time like that, money locks up and the banks go, we're not lending. They don't care how good your deal is. We're not
Yep.
lending. And if you're in that kind of a situation, then how do you
Yep.
get through it? And that's why I got so many opportunities after that, because real estate was pennies on
Yep.
the dollar.
Yeah. And and that's something, it always seems like it comes around every few years where the banks finally go, all right, we're glad everybody's happy. We're glad the market's doing what it's doing, but we're going to take our toys and we're going to go somewhere else for a little bit. And and when that does happen, everybody's like, what? Like why? But it makes perfect sense. And I was having a conversation with a banker. It's a smaller bank, just a hometown bank here in town the other day. And we were talking about single family residences, and they just don't have much appetite for anything single family residence right now, simply because, and again, there's also this idea that just because something appraises, the bank will loan you X amount of dollars on it. And that's probably true mid-size and up banks, as far as depending on strength of borrower and so many other things. But smaller banks are like, hey, we don't really care what it appraises for, we're not lending on it. Or yeah, we'll lend on it, but we're going to lend 60%, because they're just not willing to take that overinflation risk. And then you've got a borrower, and then they've got then you got a borrower that defaults, then you've got they're hung out. So there's a lot of risk in all of that just doesn't seem to get thought about when everybody's in a buying mode.
And I agree with you. Just my nature is, let's remove as much risk as
Sure.
possible. It's not to say we aren't going to take a risk, but how much risk can I take off the table? And what are the ones I can see in the foreseeable future? Right now, everyone is saying over the next 12 months, interest rates will most likely go
Yep.
up. I wouldn't bet they go down over the next 12 months just because of what's happening in the
Yep.
marketplace. I could be wrong, but I think it's a good bet.
Yeah, and I also, on the same token, I don't foresee them going up a heck of a lot more than they already have. I mean, especially going. The one thing that I feel like you always have to figure in, and I don't know that you can quantitatively figure it in, is election years. And that's both midterms and term election and presidential election years. And I feel like some of that stuff is just a little bit, what am I trying to say? Like it's planned to be that way.
I agree with you, but at the same point, I think we're in a different situation. Okay. We're in a different situation because over the last 2 years, we spent a lot of money in the government. Like it was just money flying out the door. You can't keep doing that. At some point, it's going to come back to roost. Number one. Number two, when we were talking about this before we hit record, I don't think the party in power has the political capital to do anything at the moment. So there they've got to strike against them, and the opposing party, and I don't care who's what, the opposing party going into elections always wants to talk recession, right? Oh, the other guy's screwing it
Yeah.
all up, and they both do it. The other thing is inflation. We have not seen real inflation, and again, goes back to 30,
Yep.
40 years where that was a conversation or a topic. The question is, the Fed has a choice: fight inflation or and blow up the economy, or let inflation run, which blows up the
Yeah. Yeah.
economy. So I don't know which way they're going to go. I remember interest rates at 18%, where you went to a bank and a CD paid 18%. Mortgages on houses were 15, 16, 18%. And sellers were offering, they would
Yeah.
hold the note, 5-year balloons, 7-year
Yeah.
balloons against the buyer, because that was the only way they were going to get the deal done. So it's happened before. It can happen again. I don't know when. I can't predict, but just be careful.
Yeah.
That's all.
Now, what? So when we step in and we start thinking about inflation and we start talking about the Fed and all these other outside, I don't want to say outside, but they're inside forces, if you will. My well, I can never figure this out, and it's a question that just burns in my mind. And maybe you have the answer, maybe you don't. We're just having a discussion. Um, but it's always like the Fed, and I'm talking about the Fed, the Ben, is it Ben Bernanke, or I think whoever the head of the what you call it is. Um, they always are like, oh, wait a minute, yeah, we need to increase interest rates, and let's go up 75 basis points, instead of, how about 6 months ago when all of us who saw all this money flushing into the system were going, hey, 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 let's interest rates are still at a record low here. Let's tick them up a little bit so that it's not a just a smack in the mouth. And sure enough, there they let it sit. They let it sit. They let it sit. And then all of a sudden they were like, oh, hey guys, we got to go up. We got to go up. We got to go up a lot. And I'm just like, I never have understood that. And maybe you have the answers.
I don't have the answers. I think the Fed is always behind the curve instead of ahead
But
of the
why?
curve.
They have the best technology.
No, they don't. They You think they do, but and I read a book, probably a year or two back, and it was the history of the last 5 financial meltdowns. I'm talking not little ones,
Sure.
but big ones. And literally in every case, the Fed got it wrong. So, you go back to the Great Depression, the Fed got it wrong. They messed up. Even the ones before and after that, they always, it's a political game. Who wants to crash the economy to save the future?
The
And
future
that's
isn't far
really
enough
the
out for
political
either
game where
party to say, hey, for either party to die on that mountainside. I mean, and that's the truth.
and that's the problem. Nobody remembers that, and that's the problem that we face. So there's all these political forces that are beyond our control until someone comes along. And that's what happened last time. They kept raising interest rates to a ridiculous amount to stop inflation. And it took them years. And then it worked. And then we had a nice long slide down. But when you have interest rates at 1% and 2%, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we were talking about negative
Yeah.
interest rates. I mean,
Yeah.
that's absurd.
Yep. And then at the same time, with negative interest rates, and this is always the topic of, like, I love this topic because it brings a lot of listeners, it brings a lot of people it stops a lot of people in their tracks and gets them to look at you. But you start talking about negative cap rates, and you start talking about the idea that, hey, we're going to lose money up front. You're going to buy into this deal with me, and we're going to lose money on the cash flow. It's going to negative cash flow day one. But we're buying on the idea that hopefully it's going to be worth more than it is today in 5 years. And again, I feel like you're just hedging one against the other, and you're just riding an interest rate train or interest rate roller coaster either way. But go ahead.
I we had negative cap rates in 2008, 2007. People were buying real estate that literally did not cash flow, and it was ridiculous. I mean, it was very different than it is today. Very different reasons, very
Now,
different
with you talking about
system.
such a time period, I want you to narrow that down even further and tell me pre-crash, post-crash. Obviously, I'm thinking post-crash, but
Pre-cash,
we're buying
pre-crash.
things negative interest because I'm thinking, all right, it made sense post-crash to buy something potentially negative.
The it the money was being handed out for real estate, no doc loans, no income verification, and it was not. It wasn't investors like
Yeah,
today. It was Joe on the corner who just got 3 houses, and the guy's never made more than 2 grand a month, but they handed him three
yeah,
houses. And he didn't know he actually had to pay the mortgage. He didn't know that he was negative cash flow. I got
yeah.
3 houses. They made me sign the papers and they handed it to me. So again, a very different time frame, very different mentality, not the same as today.
What is, in your professional opinion, what is the difference? I think I know the answer, but what is your opinion of what's different today than it was then?
Number one, I think you don't have silly money just being thrown at
Yeah,
everybody. We have silly money being thrown at people for other reasons, but not to
yeah,
buy homes, in the sense that's going about. Two, most of the deals that are being done in real estate are coming in capital intensive, meaning
yeah,
they're coming in, even the single family home market, people are coming in cash offers. It's not, hey, I'm financing 100% or 98% or
yeah.
any of that. They're coming in full cash offer. So very different marketplace. Um, Interest rates now, I think, are probably half of what they were back then. I don't know what interest rates were in '06 and '07, but I've got to believe they were higher than 3 and
Yeah, I think so
4%.
too. And I'm like you,
I don't remember
I don't remember
historically.
them really. To be quite truthful, I'm 40, and I don't know. I know they were really hectic in the 80s, but to be quite truthful, I don't know that I've ever known interest rates to just really be completely outlandish in my memorable
So
life.
I we bought our house in
Mhm.
'99, and our interest rate was like around
See, I
8%.
think that's what my parents, they did the same thing. They moved in '99,
Mhm.
and I wanna say it was somewhere 8 or 9%. Wasn't anything spectacular, but it wasn't 8.
Now, I will tell you what had happened was in early '99, rates went up about a half or 1 point, and the real estate market crashed. In a sense, like things dramatically slowed down because rates went up 1% or half a percent or whatever it was that they went up. And that's why we got a deal on
Yeah,
the house. People don't realize that the price of the house is inverse
that's
to the
right.
interest rate.
It's
So if
all in
interest rates go up,
well, and that's the same thing, and I'll tell you what taught me that exact point right there that you just said, and it was one of those deals that smacked me right square between the eyes, and it was flood insurance. And what flood insurance costs is that exact what you just said. Because it comes off as a capital part of the payment. And if you're pre-qualified for a $1,500 a month payment and your flood insurance is $200 a month, you're automatically knocked down to a $1,300 a month payment, which is gonna bring down what you're qualified in the house. And so what I'm getting at, yeah, it's the same thing. And when you start talking about the inverse relationship between interest rates go up, price houses go down, and vice versa. Um, but I feel like this storm that we've recently come through of high prices, high everything, was also fueled by the money in the market, just the cash. And I told a guy, I actually told my banker of all people, he said, "Yeah, man, these people are out there buying stereos and buying this and buying that." And I said, "But I'm telling you," I said, "No, we were." He was talking about the stimulus money, and I said, "Where does that money go?" I said, "You tell." I said, "I'm going to tell you who is making more than anybody." I said, "Where's that money go?" And he said, "Well, they buy stereos and TVs and cell phones." I said, "No." I said, "Yeah, they buy that stuff, but where does the money go?" And the only thing that's been happening is the money's being transferred from one bank to another. That's it. That's all that it amounts to. Now, yeah, there's goods that are exchanged in the middle, but the money is going from one bank to another, increasing the lendable basis everywhere. The Fed puts the money in. The money was directly deposited from the government to a bank, right? Then the people went and bought
Mhm.
stereos, TVs, whatever, paid child support, whatever. Then they took that money was just put from one bank to another. And these banks' lending bases got up, and they're like, "Hey, we can we can relax a few of our basic things here and lend a little more money."
Well, and the government backs up the loans, depending on
That's
the
right.
loans, and you get into a cycle of money chasing money. Real estate's going up, so we got to get in. Bitcoin's going up, so we got to get in.
FOMO. That's
Fear of missing
right.
out. I mean, that's what happens. And real estate has had a tremendous run up recently. You're also seeing shifts in
Yeah.
demographics, right? All of a sudden, the trend to go from north to south took off. People bolted. Like, my kid was in New York City. Half of New York City left probably in the first month
Yeah.
of COVID,
California, same way.
walked out.
California, same way.
Hmm.
California had, they used to call it the gold rush. California had the people rush, and the people rush were leaving.
So people, and the thing is, and that's what people don't realize, when you're leaving a high cost of living area and they're moving south, they're like, is this all a house cost? I'll buy it. They had no idea what it was
That's right.
before.
That's right. And and our near market, Nashville, Tennessee,
Oh,
is one of those markets
nuts.
where our the infrastructure there, to be quite truthful, should have been actually updated once between what it was and now. So it should have already been updated one time in order to even come close. And now Nashville is operating off of infrastructure that was built for the 90s in the 80s, if that makes sense. And so, and there's no telling the tertiary markets outside of Nashville, which we're one of them, where people are simply just selling their house over there, doing nothing more than calling an agent and saying, "Hey, I want to put my house on the market." And they're paying their mortgage off, and they're bringing that cash, which they don't have to pay capital gains on because they've lived there 2 of the last 5 years. And they're coming markets like ours, and they're just writing a check. They're just paying cash, and they're moving in, and they're like, "Oh, I got," they don't have the big city hustle, bustle, whatever of Nashville, and they are living free and clear in a house that's paid for. Hi, this is Casey Brown, host of the Cash Flow Pro podcast and YouTube channel. Have you been thinking about investing in real estate but just don't know where to begin? I'd like to help by inviting you to check out our website at www.3000capital.com. There you will find an array of material that will help you learn all about real estate syndication. And while you're there, be sure to check out our free video series download titled 5 Must Know Keys to Success in Passive Real Estate Investing. I'd also like to personally thank you for making Cash Flow Pro part of your day. Now, back to the show. And so that's just an example of, I think, what's going on a little bit of everywhere. And the Southeast markets, Nashville, Houston, um, I'm trying to even Austin, and I'm trying to think of some others that are in that
Mhm.
Sun Belt kind of.
All of Texas and
Yeah.
Florida and Nashville all have taken off. Georgia's taken off. Money is flowing there because everyone goes, oh, these are cheap. Let's buy them relative to what they see elsewhere. Rents have gone up. And my question is, how long are we going to be able to sustain rents once the rent subsidies end? once a few people lose their job, if we go into a recession, I don't know what that does to overall rents and to those types of
Well,
places.
and as my listeners, I'm sure get tired of me talking about, you and I both, and I'm sure, depending upon maybe this was geographically dependent on where you were as to what you saw, but we're not that many years separated from when there was big canvas signs draped over the side of apartment buildings saying free plasma screen TV with the signing of a 1 year lease, right? I mean,
Hmm.
begging people, hey, we need tenants, we need people to move in here. Now, with that being said, it's still hard to say if we're going to get back to that or if there really is. There's a shortage somewhere, but that also means there's an abundance of this somewhere too, and I don't know where the abundance is. Like, where are the houses that all of these people have suddenly moved out of? Where are they? Or because the population hasn't grown that fast, has it?
I don't believe so. I have no idea. I can't figure that part out.
They're coming from somewhere.
Well, part of it is you have to realize we have had a bull market in syndications. So, what are syndications going to do? They're going to go in, they're going to buy up an apartment building, rents are 8 or 900 or whatever they are in that locality. They're going to improve the property slightly. Rents are going to go up 20, 30%. So, those people up until now have not had a choice, right? They can move to another place, they can start paying more rent. But what you're seeing now, because you mentioned it, they're not shopping at Target and Walmart anymore. Target and Walmart have an abundance of goods because people, between gas prices and everything else, people can't
Yep.
afford it. So I think what you're doing is squeezing people. It just takes a while for them to realize they're squeezed. I mean, what do you do if I'm living in an area, my rent's 1,200 and now it's 1,400? Where am I going to go at the moment? Now when my neighbor loses his job, it's unfortunate, but if the economy turns down, then that's when the things open up.
Yeah, yeah. And it's always, it just seems like it's always that middle class area that really gets
Hmm.
hit, because then those people who moved up suddenly now have to move back down, and then those people that were up above them are now moving back down, and then it leaves again that top,
Well, I think that's where Nashville's going to have a massive problem.
the upper end.
Um, there's no affordable housing for workers. So
Yeah.
all your basic services, people can't afford to live in Nashville. And the question is do they want to drive 45 minutes to work, or are they going to go somewhere else?
Yeah. And it becomes a decision, and then when those decisions get, do we buy food or do we pay rent? And then suddenly those basic services that the workforce was supplying now become more of an issue, right?
Well, yes. Now, up until recently, we've had rent subsidies. We've had a lot of money that got pushed out to help people with rent.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of that is going to be ending by
Yep.
September. And so that's when we will start to see the reality of what's going to happen going
Yep.
forward. How are people going to continue to pay their bills, and what will change? And none of this is predictable. These are all just risks that I think people should be aware of and think through. So as you make your decisions, you say, what if? And everything is, it's a game of chance, and you've got to figure out where the winds are shifting and not be blindsided. You made that comment earlier about a lot of these things you can see the freight train coming.
I feel
It's
like I
just a matter of
do.
when it gets
Yeah.
there.
I feel like I do. And I feel like there's a lot of things. I feel like there's a lot of and there's a lot of animosity among just people in general right now, and I don't quite understand. Like everybody expects, hey, there's never going to be another bad day, and you expect all of these things and everybody to be walking around smiling, but man, there's a lot of pissed off people right now, and I have no idea what they're pissed off about. I can't figure it out because I mean,
Gas is $5 a
yeah,
gallon.
and I guess you start seeing more people vacations are going into the gas tank, and the toys that they were buying is now going to the gas tank, and so yeah.
Have you looked at
Oh my
airfare?
gosh, yes. You know,
Yeah,
my wife and I
people
flew
like
round trip, and I'm not kidding. I am about to tell you serious as anything. My wife and I flew round trip from Nashville, Tennessee to Milan, Italy. And then we traveled from Milan down to Rome. And so this is a split fare, right? So then we flew home from Rome back to Nashville, and it was $1,250 total. $625 per person round trip. Now, I say all of that. These tickets were bought like January, February ish. We traveled in April. Now it's July, and you couldn't. I mean, they're outrageous.
you probably be over
Oh, I
$2,000.
guarantee you. And it's unbelievable. Almost twice. I mean, it's twice what it was. So we took the opportunity to do that while the opportunity was there, knowing that I knew that I was like, this. There's no way this can last. And at the time, even then, you know, we sat in seats to ourselves. I mean, like we had whole rows all by ourselves at those prices. And so I can't imagine they're doing much justice right now, but they can't immediately step out of the off the porch into a loss. I mean, I guess they did, but gas wasn't $5 a gallon either. So, well, listen, Rocky, thank you so much for meeting with us today and talking. And I know we've had more just kind of a discussion about current economic climate and the times and possibly what's coming. But I want to ask you a couple of questions that we ask everybody that comes on the show. There's no right or wrong answer, but I can see in those for those that are watching on YouTube versus those that are listening, he has a massive bookshelf behind him. So he's got all kinds of stuff that he's learned from sitting right at his fingertips. But what is the best book that you have either recently read or are currently reading?
The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham.
The Road Less Stupid.
Now, think about this. The premise of this book is he was a real estate investor and he thought he was smart. And then the market shifted on him and he blew up like big time. And so this book is about how not to be stupid.
That's pretty cool. I think we need to have a book on how not to be stupid for like several different segments of the world right now. Right? What is a dream vacation that you've either taken or hope to take?
So for the longest time I wanted to go to Italy and we did that probably 5 years ago. We had a blast, had everything wonderfully done and tours and all private. Like I don't want to
Sure.
go in groups, but got to go to, vineyards and have wonderful meals and traveled all over Italy. So that was a lot of fun.
Italy is a great country just in general, and the little like just the little hole in the wall things that are around, and like those people will open a restaurant in a split second. Like they don't even need walls and a door to open a restaurant. They'll open a restaurant in the middle of anywhere.
You can get real estate in Italy for free in some
I'm
towns.
Sure. I'm sure there's some towns they want to give it away for sure, and in France the same way. So, well, all right. Well, Rocky, listen, if there's something that somebody heard that resonated with them and they'd like to reach out to you, maybe talk a little more about, or maybe pick your brain about, what is the best way for somebody to get in touch with you?
Hey, before we talk about me, if you guys enjoyed Casey's show, would you do me a favor? would you give him like a thumbs up or a rating, or just show a like and help him promote the show if it helps him get his word out and help more people like you. So I know Casey would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
If you'd like to find me, I have my own podcast is called Profit Answer Man, where we teach everything about how to be profitable in your real estate and in your life. And the website is profitcomesfirst.com, and there's all the contact info on
Awesome.
there.
Well, y'all reach out to Rocky. And listeners, as always, as he said, head down, leave us a 5-star review, smash elbow, toes, knees, whatever you can use, whatever appendage of your choice to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review, and also write us a review so that other listeners or potential listeners may understand or know what we talk about here on Cashflow Pro. And as always, Rocky, thank you so much. And to the listeners, thank you for listening. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day. Cashflow Pro is hosted by Casey Brown, founder and CEO of 3000 Capital, a commercial real estate investment firm committed to providing its investors with ongoing cash flow and helping them build long-term wealth. If you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified about all our future episodes. You can find more information about us and our investment philosophy by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thanks for listening.